Hello everyone, and welcome to my CBS YNR Full Today channel. Please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
Have you ever wondered if there's a limit to how much one person can take before they finally snap? We've watched Nikki and Victor Newman dance this dangerous tango for decades, but what happened recently didn't just step on toes, it tried to crush a woman's soul. You probably saw the headlines about the slap heard round Genoa City, but do you really know what led up to that crack of skin against skin? It wasn't just about a business deal or a little white lie. It was about Victor Newman asking for something so disgusting and so heartless that Nikki had no choice but to strike back. Was this really just a simple mistake on Victor's part, or was it a sign that the mustache has finally lost his grip on reality? We're going to dive deep into this today because the fallout is way bigger than just one broken marriage. It's about the end of an era. To really get why Nikki was so disgusted, we have to look at the mess Victor made behind her back. Victor wasn't just playing hardball, he was acting like a common criminal. He actually cooked up a kidnapping scheme to get control of Newman and Chancellor. He snatched Jack Abbott and even Lily's twins just to use them as bargaining chips. Think about that for a second. This is a man who says he does everything for family, yet he's kidnapping other people's kids to get a corporate office back. It's that classic Victor God complex, where he thinks he's the only one who matters. Nikki actually tried to support him at first because she's always been his ride or die, but she had no idea how dark he was really going. She voiced her concerns, but Victor just kept on digging that hole. The breaking point didn't even happen at the ranch, it happened at society. Nikki was just trying to live her life when Diane and Kyle dropped the bomb on her. They told her that Victor was holding Jack against his will. Imagine the humiliation of finding out your husband is a kidnapper from your worst enemy. It's not just the crime that hurts, it's the fact that Victor looked her in the eye every morning and kept this a secret. Analysis suggests that Victor doesn't just keep secrets for safety, he does it because he wants total dominance over everyone, including his wife's conscience. He thinks he owns the truth, and he only gives Nikki the pieces he thinks she can handle. But Nikki isn't some puppet he can just tuck away in a drawer when things get messy. Why did Victor choose this specific moment to push Nikki to the edge? He was feeling the walls close in on his empire. With Phyllis holding the keys to Chancellor and the Abbott family standing tall, Victor's usual scare tactics weren't working. He was desperate, and a desperate Victor Newman is the most dangerous version there is. But the disgusting part, the part that really made Nikki's stomach turn, was when she realized he was using Patty Williams as his weapon. We're talking about a woman who has stalked, shot, and obsessed over Jack for years. Victor literally threw Jack into the hands of a violent nutcase just to win a board meeting. That isn't business, it's psychological torture. Internally, Nikki was probably feeling a massive sense of moral vertigo. Her whole world was spinning. Jack has been her rock for years, especially when she was struggling with her health or her sobriety. For Victor to use Jack's life like a poker chip was a betrayal of everything Nikki holds dear. She felt isolated in her own home. The Newman Ranch, which is supposed to be her sanctuary, started feeling more like a gilded cage. Don't you think it's ironic that Victor claims his darkest deeds are to keep his family safe, yet he's the one making his wife feel the most unsafe? It's a total contradiction. I see this whole situation as the moment Victor's Pygmalion project finally failed. Remember, decades ago, he plucked Nikki from a strip club and refined her into a socialite. He's always acted like he created her. He thinks he owns the version of her that wears the diamonds and runs the media company. But by slapping him and rejecting his demand, Nikki was reclaiming her own life. She was telling him that she isn't just a reflection in his mirror. She's a human being with a heart he can't control. It's a complete reframing of their marriage. It's gone from a legendary romance to a hostage situation where Nikki is finally demanding a ransom for her own soul. In my opinion, Victor's behavior here is just plain abusive. He weaponized a mentally unstable woman like Patty, who has literally shot both him and Jack in the past, just to get a company back. If your partner asks you to trade your integrity for their ego, is the relationship even worth saving anymore? I'm 100% on Nikki's side here. The slap wasn't just a physical reaction, it was an exorcism. She was knocking the influence he's had over her right out of the room. It's like she finally saw the monster behind the mask he's been wearing for 40 years. Psychologically, this is a textbook case of a narcissistic injury. Victor can't handle the fact that Jack Abbott has been there for Nikki in ways he hasn't. Every time Jack helps her, it reminds Victor of his own failures. He demanded she cut Jack off not to protect the family, but to soothe his own bruised ego. He's suffering from a King Lear complex. As he fears losing his professional power, he tightens his grip on his family until they have no choice but to revolt. He's pushing them away while screaming at them to stay loyal. Does that make any sense to you? The tension at the ranch didn't just peak, it shattered. When Nikki finally got Victor face to face, she wasn't the submissive wife anymore. She was on the warpath. She confronted him about the kidnapping, and instead of saying sorry, Victor doubled down. He didn't just justify the kidnapping, he turned the tables and accused Nikki of being disloyal. That's the classic Victor Newman gaslight. He makes the victim feel like the villain for having a conscience. He stood there in that grand living room and gave her the ultimate, disgusting demand. She had to choose between him and Jack. The Patty Williams factor made this whole thing toxic. Nikki knows Patty is dangerous. She knows Patty nearly killed them both in the past. To find out that Victor would put Jack, a man who has been Nikki's rock, in the hands of a literal attempted murderer was too much. Victor's demand wasn't just a business move, it was an act of pure cruelty. Nikki's disgust was so strong it actually made her feel sick. She started getting these terrible headaches and feeling woozy. Can you imagine the level of stress it takes to make your body literally start to fail? That's what Victor was doing to her. When the slap finally landed, it was the sound of decades of Nick Tor mythology cracking in half. And look at Victor's reaction. He didn't apologize. He didn't try to comfort her. He told her to get out. He'd rather be the king of an empty ranch than a husband to a woman who dares to tell him he's wrong. This wasn't just a fight, it was a total system failure. Even Victoria tried to get involved and told them to work it out, but it was too late. Victoria actually defended some of Victor's extreme measures, which is just going to drive a wedge between her and her mother. We're seeing a full-blown Newman civil war now. So, what happens next? I suspect Nikki isn't just taking a break. She's moving toward a permanent kind of independence that Victor isn't prepared for. If she moves in with Victoria as a silent protest, Victor will be forced to look at his empty house every single night. But there's a wild card here, Nikki's health. The head writer, Josh Griffith, has been teasing a frightening health crisis for Nikki. Usually, in soaps, a medical emergency brings a couple back together. But what if this time is different? What if Victor tries to use her illness as another way to manage or control her? That might actually be the thing that pushes her even closer to Jack. I also think the rest of the Newman family is going to fall apart. Nick is already dealing with his own massive issues, and seeing his parents' marriage dissolve could be the trigger for a total relapse. The biggest consequence, though, is that the Newman name might finally lose its power. If the family is this fractured, their enemies are going to smell blood in the water. Phyllis and Billy aren't just going to sit back and watch. Victor might get his company back, but he's going to be sitting on a throne in a graveyard he built himself. Is a corporate logo really worth losing your wife and your children? Why is Victor so obsessed with Jack after all these years? Seriously, it's been decades of this. Jack is like the anti-Victor. Where Victor is hard and cold, Jack is usually open and supportive. By demanding Nikki end the friendship, Victor is trying to erase the part of Nikki that values kindness. He wants her to be as cynical as he is. It's a form of emotional cannibalism. He wants to be her husband, her boss, and her only friend. That's not a marriage, that's an obsession. And the funny thing is, the more he tries to pull her in, the faster she runs away. Think about the shame Nikki felt standing at society while Diane Jenkins, the woman she has hated forever, told her what her own husband was doing. It's the ultimate I told you so. Nikki's disgust was partly directed at herself for ever believing Victor could change. She realized she had been an enabler for way too long. The slap was as much about her own self-loathing as it was about Victor's crimes. She was waking up from a 40-year dream that had turned into a nightmare. Sometimes it takes your worst enemy to show you the truth about your best friend. Let's talk about the history of the slap itself. Nikki is no stranger to throwing a hand. She's slapped Jill, Sharon, and Victor many times over the years. But this one on March 16th felt different. It wasn't born out of a catfight or a quick flash of anger. It was a cold, calculated response to a demand that she give up her soul. Historically, a slap in a soap opera means you've gone too far. But for Nikki and Victor, it's like a final goodbye. If the heart of the show slaps the soul of the show, can the show even survive? It feels like Nikki was handing in her resignation from the Newman family. Victor's demand for Nikki to move out is just the peak of arrogance. He's the one who kidnapped a man. He's the one who brought a psychopath into the mix. And yet, he plays the victim because Nikki won't support him. It's a masterclass in shifting the blame. He'd rather lose the love of his life than admit he made a mistake with a business merger. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about the man, nothing will. He's focused on his own obsession, and he doesn't care who he takes down with him. I'll write this as a long-form, realistic the young and the restless narrative article focused on Nikki Newman, Victor, Victoria, Jack, and the growing Newman family crisis. For decades, Nikki Newman has stood at the center of Genoa City like an unshakable force of nature. Through corporate wars, betrayals, kidnappings, scandals, addictions, and family heartbreak, she has somehow managed to remain the emotional foundation of one of the most powerful families in Wisconsin. But now, for the first time in a very long time, that foundation appears to be cracking. What began as a series of headaches and moments of exhaustion has suddenly evolved into something far more frightening, leaving the entire Newman family staring into an uncertain future they may not be prepared to face. The devastating test results that Victoria Newman discovers do not simply raise concerns about Nikki's health. They threaten to unravel the entire structure that has held the Newman dynasty together for years. In many ways, the crisis feels less like a medical emergency and more like the beginning of a reckoning. Every secret, every resentment, every emotional wound that has been buried beneath years of wealth and power is now rising to the surface at the worst possible moment. Victoria finds herself carrying a burden she never expected to shoulder. As she studies the reports and listens to doctors explain the seriousness of Nikki's condition, she realizes that the woman she has always relied upon may suddenly need saving herself. For Victoria, the fear runs deeper than simply losing a parent. Nikki has always served as the mediator between Victor and the rest of the family. Whenever conflicts exploded, Nikki was the one capable of restoring some measure of peace. She understood Victor in ways no one else could, and often softened his harshest edges before permanent damage was done. Without Nikki standing between Victor and the world, Victoria fears the consequences could be catastrophic. The possibility of losing her mother forces her to confront a terrifying question: what happens to the Newman family when its heart stops beating? Meanwhile, Victor Newman is facing a reality he cannot control. Throughout his life, Victor has built an empire on the belief that every problem has a solution and every obstacle can be overcome through determination, power, or money. His confidence has allowed him to survive countless battles, but Nikki's illness presents a challenge unlike anything he has ever encountered. For perhaps the first time in years, Victor finds himself powerless. He cannot negotiate with doctors the way he negotiates with business rivals. He cannot intimidate a diagnosis. He cannot purchase certainty. Every passing hour forces him to acknowledge a vulnerability he has spent decades trying to avoid. Behind the anger and stubbornness lies a man terrified of losing the one person who has remained by his side through every triumph and every mistake. The timing of Nikki's health crisis could not be worse. The Newman family is already fractured by ongoing conflicts. Nick Newman continues to struggle with personal demons that have left his loved ones worried and exhausted. His recent troubles have placed tremendous emotional strain on Nikki, who has spent much of her energy trying to protect her son from self-destruction. Watching Nick suffer has reopened old wounds connected to her own battles with addiction and recovery. Every setback Nick experiences feels personal to Nikki because she understands exactly how difficult those battles can be. The stress of constantly worrying about him has clearly taken a toll, even if she refused to admit it. At the same time, Victor's ongoing war with Jack Abbott has created another source of pressure. The feud has consumed so much of Victor's attention that many people around him have begun questioning his priorities. While Nikki's health was deteriorating, Victor remained focused on proving his dominance over his longtime rival. What makes the situation especially painful is that Nikki repeatedly attempted to encourage peace. She understood that endless conflict served no one, yet her efforts often fell on deaf ears. Now, as she lies vulnerable and uncertain about her future, those unresolved tensions threaten to explode into something even more destructive. Victoria's decision to involve Jack creates an entirely new layer of complexity. In Victor's eyes, reaching out to Jack could easily be interpreted as a betrayal. Yet from Victoria's perspective, the choice makes perfect sense. Jack offers something the Newman family desperately lacks at the moment: emotional stability. While Victor responds to crisis through control and aggression, Jack approaches pain through compassion and understanding. His history with Nikki gives him a unique perspective on what she needs emotionally during this difficult time. Although their romantic relationship belongs to the past, the bond between them has never fully disappeared. Jack genuinely cares about Nikki's well-being, and his concern becomes increasingly evident as the situation worsens. For Jack, Nikki's illness awakens feelings he thought he had long ago learned to manage. Watching her suffer reminds him of all the years they spent apart and all the possibilities that never became reality. He knows she chose Victor, and he respects that choice, but crises have a way of stripping away emotional defenses. Suddenly, memories become impossible to ignore. Every conversation with Nikki feels more significant. Every hospital visit carries additional emotional weight. He finds himself wondering whether he did enough, whether he said enough, and whether he will have another chance to tell her how much she means to him. The situation also threatens to create tension within Jack's own marriage. Diane Jenkins cannot help noticing the intensity of Jack's concern. While she understands the seriousness of Nikki's condition, she also recognizes the complicated history that exists between Jack and Nikki. As Jack spends more time supporting the Newman family, Diane may begin questioning where his heart truly lies. Those insecurities could spark conflicts at a time when everyone involved is already emotionally overwhelmed. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of Nikki's illness is the loneliness she must be experiencing. For years, she has devoted herself to supporting everyone around her. She has been the caretaker, the mediator, the peacemaker, and the source of strength others relied upon. Now the roles have reversed. Suddenly, she is the one facing uncertainty. She is the one needing comfort. She is the one depending on others for support. That transition cannot be easy for someone as fiercely independent and resilient as Nikki. Even surrounded by family, she may feel isolated by fears she cannot fully express. The possibility of surgery introduces additional anxiety. Every discussion with doctors carries enormous emotional stakes. Family members find themselves hanging on every word, searching desperately for reassurance that may not exist. The reported 50-50 odds become an obsession. Some view the statistic as hopeful because survival remains possible. Others focus on the terrifying reality that the outcome could go either way. The uncertainty creates a cloud of tension that follows everyone involved. As news of Nikki's condition spreads through Genoa City, reactions begin emerging from every corner of the community. Friends, enemies, former lovers, and business associates all recognize the significance of the moment. Regardless of personal conflicts, Nikki Newman has touched countless lives. Her potential loss would leave a void that extends far beyond her immediate family. People who rarely agree on anything suddenly find themselves united by concern for her future. Adam Newman inevitably becomes part of the story as well. Adam has spent much of his life trying to earn acceptance within the family while simultaneously battling feelings of rejection. Nikki's illness presents another opportunity for him to prove his loyalty. Whether through researching treatments, supporting family members, or attempting to solve problems, Adam will likely throw himself into the crisis with determination. Unfortunately, his efforts could also create friction. Good intentions often become complicated when multiple family members believe they know what is best. Nick faces a particularly painful emotional journey. As he watches his mother fight for her health, guilt threatens to consume him. He cannot ignore the possibility that the stress surrounding his recent struggles contributed to her condition. Rationally, he understands the situation is far more complicated than that. Emotionally, however, guilt rarely follows logic. Every difficult memory becomes magnified. Every mistake feels larger. The fear of losing Nikki forces Nick to reevaluate